Before we get started on that case study, I should have asked whenever we got started here again. I think I did last year, and I want to get just a poll of who's here. Okay, so I already know there's a couple school psychologists, school social workers, okay, school counselors, teachers, okay, speech language therapists, any other that I'm missing, audiologists.
LBS 1, learning behavioral specialist.
Okay, all right, good. Got to get to know all the acronyms of this state here. So behavior specialist, right? Learning behavior specialist. Okay. Anybody else? Sorry.
LPPP.
Okay, supervisor.
No, I'm not a supervisor. I work as a clinical therapist in a hospital setting. And also I work with kids in the high school along with elementary.
Wonderful. Yeah. So welcome. A lot of diversity here. Okay. So now I'm done. Now your work will start, okay, during the case study. I'm going to give you a little bit of guidance, though, okay? So there's going to be a lot of data here. Whenever I pull the slide up here, don't read it, because you've got it all there in front of you, okay? But I'll just kind of show you what some of the data is when I pull the slide up, okay? And then what you're going to do is break into your groups, however big or small that you want to do, and you're going to look through all of the observational data. I think there's like 5 separate like instructional periods you're going to look through, and then I think other information from the FAST and a reinforcer profile and maybe some other interventions that had worked. And then from that we're going to go through and kind of develop with problem behavior function and go through developing a behavior plan. Okay, for this kid this is more the multiply disabled, deaf, hard of hearing kid that's also MR and autistic. Okay, so these first 3 instructional periods really do more charting of behavior problems and also functional language that's used. Okay. And the 4th and 5th periods, they're labeled here as like independent work periods that focus more on some of the academic skills. Or in this case, it's more like pre-academic skills because this kid's in a functional deaf and hard of hearing class. Other kids that are deaf but also have significant either cognitive disabilities or autism or multiple disabilities are in this same class. So I want you to focus on, and let's see what else we've got. Like I said, we've got the indirect observation from the FAST. Okay. Yeah, all the things I talked about there was the direct observational data, the FAST information, reinforcers, interventions tried, okay? And 3 things I want you to be looking for as you go through the data. First, now I forget. Look through the changes in the environment to help increase some of the appropriate behaviors that you want they wanted the student to have. Bless you. Look through some of the alternative skills that they worked on. Okay, like instead of problem behavior to get what she wants, what did they want her to do instead? Looking through some of that you'll see through your observational data. And then third, look through the types of behavioral data collection that they worked on. Like how did they collect their data? going back to those observational techniques, because I'll be asking you, what did they do? Did they do event recording? Did they get rate data? Did they try for that? Did they do some other types of those data collection techniques? So pay attention to those three things. How they may have changed the environment to get more appropriate behavior, the alternative skills they focused on, and then the behavioral data collection. Because what I did here, there were like a few different things I tweaked in the PowerPoint. Like one slide that you don't have that I've added on here is this last thing. We're also going to answer that question, okay? You don't have that in your packet, but you can add it. We're also going to look at, how are we going to be measuring the behavioral change and collect the data, okay? Something else that I added a little bit here that I wanted you, since we went over the observational techniques, that I wanted you to focus on a little. Whenever you're looking at target behavior, okay, also try to see if you can get a handle on frequency, like how often it's occurring and the conditions under which it's occurring, whether it's during like a work time or independent time, okay, and then how frequent, okay. So you have the data available to you, but sometimes it's like too much data, okay, that you need to try to organize and try to make some sense out of it, okay. So now so take your time and go through the different data, and then we'll come back and that's our goal. We'll come back maybe like I'll walk around too, but we'll come back in like by 11:45 and then like start going through the different parts of the behavior plan, okay? And I'll get some different viewpoints from all of you guys, like on what you think, behavior, function, and so on. Okay, so go ahead and separate yourselves. Preliminary identification of problem behavior and function and alternative skills. I know this was a lot of data to look through and to try to like organize it. But we'll do our best here, and then our reinforcer will be lunch, which will be waiting in just like just a few minutes. A couple things that I got around and told a couple groups, which I'll tell all of you now that you've probably seen that sometimes that data doesn't match up. The direct observational data may not match up perfectly with the indirect observational data, like from the FAST. Like on this one, the FAST talked about more problems that the teacher had been seeing, not just aggression towards self, but also aggression towards others. That from the direct observation, you don't see all that stuff because direct observation, again, is more of a limited sample, right? Of like one day, looking at like what behaviors popped up during different instructional periods. So that's okay. I mean, it's kind of like just what you try to do when you set up a direct observation is you want to try to find a time where you're going to see something, one of the most important problem behaviors you want to address, right? And certain behaviors did pop up, right? As far as like hitting and pinching and towards self. So maybe then for what we decide here as far as like overall problem behaviors and and interventions and things like that, maybe we want to find the behaviors that that go across the direct and the indirect observation just for starters. And again, like you guys know, it doesn't mean that you're going to stick with one problem behavior and that's going to be it forever. You may want to try to work on that, and once you get success in that area, then maybe move to another problem behavioral area. Another thing that, another intervention or assessment piece that I didn't go over, you might have seen that potential reinforcement profile in there. How many of you have seen that before? Okay. I'm also, like in the packet of information I'll give you, it will give a copy of that too, along with like that website, and I'm not sure if you can get it free now, like on the website, but I'm sure you can, like through certain functional assessment and functional analysis resources. It's from a specific website of establishing operations. I think it's .inc. And it's a cool reinforcement profile checklist to where it goes through visual, visual, auditory, tactile movement reinforcers, and then like the teacher or parent will check like whether it's slightly good reinforcer, moderately, or strong. And from that, if you've got like different strong reinforcers in the different sensory areas, then you can use that to help to build into your behavior plan in order to get the appropriate behavior, to give like a break from a work period and then they get a reinforcer that's meaningful for them. So it just kind of helps to organize that data where if you ask the teacher and they say, oh, nothing reinforces them. Well, that's easy to say, but then you give them this form that has a million things on there, they're going to find something that's maybe moderate, may not be strong, but moderate works sometimes, and that's going to help you, just build your plan. Go ahead.
And sometimes if they don't check anything, it's something you can try.
Right.
Whereas they say, oh, nothing is strong when you finally get the sheet back. But there are so many things on there that they haven't tried that there are possibilities.
So many.
That, like our OT is trying to figure out what to do with the fine motor table.
Right.
Well, look at all these possibilities.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody
Yeah.
can try yet.
Right. There's no way you could think of all of those specific possibilities, and that's nice to have a checklist that includes so many different things in different sensory areas. Okay. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Question here.
The website that you're referring to?
It's establishing operations, one word, dot. It's either Inc., INC, or org. Yeah, try Inc. I think that's what it is. Yeah, establishing operations, dot Inc., INC. And if that doesn't work, try org. Okay. Okay. Who wants to just volunteer? Oh, sorry.
It's .com.
Oh, com. The one that I didn't tell you. I figured that. I was going to give that as a third option, but okay. So it's .com. And again, what I've told some of you that sometimes it doesn't have websites that used to have a lot of free resources. It's funny because like sometimes then you check back like in months or years later, and then now it's like blocked and that you have to pay for them and stuff. So, but there's enough of us around that have already kind of like downloaded. We have them free, so yeah, so don't pay for it. Okay, who wants to take a stab at like just pick one, or one or more than one, like just big target behavior that we're trying to eliminate from like the data that we saw, and then a stab of like how frequent it seems to occur and how often or in what conditions it seems to be occurring. Who wants to volunteer? Just from their group work.
Self-hitting and pinching.
Okay. That's pretty good, clearly described behaviorally, right? Self-hitting, pinching. Does everybody feel pretty good about kind of going with that? Something like that. There was a lot of data collected on that was seen from the FAST, but also then from like the direct observation, and severe enough to really kind of prioritize, right? Okay, self-hitting, pinching. Any data on that you were able to kind of like capture or integrate? There were a lot of like small minute-long periods within one work period, and then multiple work periods. Who can try to maybe like condense that? Like what would be an average frequency that it's occurring, and when is it occurring? The self-hitting, pinching. And maybe we even want to separate it and say during the work period and also during the instructional period versus the independent period.
We were saying there wasn't enough information on them other times. And we only were given the specific time.
Mm-hmm.
Was there 40 minutes in between? Was there 5 minutes in between? That's huge to know that this is the frequency during that allotted time, but how much time is in between?
Between the instructional periods?
Yes.
Okay. I told some of the groups that, but that's something that wasn't listed here. The time periods in between were about the same as the instructional periods. There were preventive strategies built in to where she would do a 3 minutes work and then 3 minutes break and then 3 minutes work. So they would try to do that. Yeah, I'm sorry, whenever I came around I didn't, couldn't think of everything to tell you guys, but that's kind of how it was set up, and that was hopefully like a preventive strategy. If you gave her that break time, then she would know she needed to work 3 minutes, and then she'd get her break where she could get her reinforcers, and then work more, and then so that's kind of how it went through that morning, through instructional break, and then it shifted to independent work. This was stuff that she could do more independently without the teacher providing instruction. The instructional periods were more challenging level work. Okay.
Was the instructional period one-on-one or was it group?
Yeah, one-on-one. Yeah. I mean, we had a range. Anybody want to did anybody take a stab at like just a range of like the self-hitting and pinching during instructional periods? Yeah, during a whole instructional period, really, right? Because it could be even like kind of 0 to 10 each minute, right? During, and then if it was like a 4-minute, then maybe you'd say like a 40 self-hits and or pinches during that instructional period. What about during the independent periods?
Again, we didn't know in independent work if that was with one-on-one with the therapeutic staff?
Right.
Or was that, removed from the classroom? We didn't know some of the environmental changes?
Right, good. Yeah, good question. What that was with the instructional periods were one-on-one teacher-student, but the therapeutic staff was also there too to provide any support. During independent period, that was stuff that she's shown the ability to do, so it was her independently, but the behavioral person was there to provide support if the problems started happening. So there was no teacher close by for the independent periods. It was more just the student and the therapeutic staff.
But both times it was basically a one-on-one.
Well, no, the therapeutic staff, no, there's no instruction provided. Like in the instructional periods, like the teacher is like holding up like pictures, like we're requiring a response, like the stimulus response.
One person sitting with her to support whatever
Close by, yeah.
Close by.
Yeah, close by if she starts engaging in the problem behaviors, yeah. So with the tasks that were done during the independent periods, was it the same range or a lot lower? A lot lower, right. So remember those things I wanted you to think about. What can that tell you about, maybe changing the environment to reduce the self-hitting and pinching?
One of the questions that we had was, is she being taught at her level, or is some of this information going over her head?
Good point. It should be at her level. The instructional periods are definitely more challenging. I mean, it's like what you think of with instructional level when you're dealing with any academic area. It's concepts that she still does not have mastered, okay? So with the independent period, you're seeing a lot less of the problem behavior, right? Even with less monitoring from the teacher. So maybe if, whenever she has the higher level of challenge, she's increasing that, but she's also then getting more attention from like the staff members there too. So what are you gonna say?
It's not unusual if you don't have as much expected of you to then not misbehave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The language that she was using that they said, was that in the content of the instruction, or was that just random words she was...
Another good question. Yeah, that was more to, it was more to request, requesting her breaks, like requesting her reinforcers. That's what a lot of the, if you saw like a lot of the language, yeah, it wasn't related to the actual instructional, but it was more to request, like her sock or her blanket or, or break. But again, that relates to one of the other questions I said, what about this, the alternative skills? They were trying to teach her, to instead of this, to say stop or break, right? Trying to give her some functional language to do that. Did you see, was there any success in that, do you think? Like using those language skills as functional, as an alternate skill to reduce the problem behavior?
Well, because they didn't give her the break, or they didn't give her the blanket, they didn't give her the... If she was successful at doing whatever it was she was doing, and then she said, now I need my self-sustaining thing, they didn't give it to her.
Well, yeah, right, they didn't give it to her right then, but what they normally would do would be, that would be a great thing if she worked for 2 minutes and then went bam, bam, bam to signify break, If then she started doing more of stop, they would respond to that and say, ah, yes, yes, 1 minute, and then break, okay, or and then name their reinforcer or whatever. So they were doing that. So if she would request those things during the work periods, but that was a real positive thing. To hopefully to increase that, the language to ask for the break. But then she also still needed to hold. You know, she needed to wait, you know, for maybe 1 more minute of work. Yeah, what were you going to say?
Talked about it seemed that when she was doing independent work that she was, because she was asking for those types of breaks and just the behavior was on herself, that it seemed that she was seeking sensory, and that if maybe they started implementing it while she was doing that work, something that could be tangible for her to do, like whether it's squeezy ball or something, that could be a replaceable and more appropriate behavior than pinching herself, or then she might be able to attend a task enough to do those 4-7, you know, because it didn't look like the expectations was crazy long time period that maybe she would be able to do it. But like we had so many questions when we came by, we were like, well, how old is she? What other disabilities she has?
Right.
We're trying to figure out, you know, what would be appropriate for her.
Yeah, it didn't even have an age. She's 9, but a lot of like but if you saw like the skills she's working on, they're still preschool level, like pre-academic type of activities, you know, with like matching, you know, shapes and colors and things like that. So because she was MR at a really low level and with her behavioral complications, yeah, so maybe I was thinking like maybe even if there was the instructional period was shorter and then a short independent work period and then back to instruction and then a break and then instructional and then independent and then a break. It's something that wasn't tried here. But you know, if she had less of the problem behavior during the independent period, where she just had a little wait time, but whenever she started moving on it, she did the stuff, right? It was more whenever the teacher was really challenging her and putting more on her, that's whenever those things increased. Maybe it's the same thing like when you think about with other academic areas where you alternate easy and hard tasks, right? Yeah, maybe that could happen here more, where you do briefer instructional, independent, and then a break. I don't, you know, that could be something to maybe add in based on like the data here.
We tried, we had DB drill going, some of our kids with blind and autistic, and the periods, we think the periods are too long, but one of the things that we started doing that we realized they weren't doing is we started putting more maintenance in with the more challenging,
right.
and just zipping it up that way, so he felt successful, because it just seemed like he was missing just too many during that block. So then we would just start hitting him with more of the maintenance. So we might do a couple of challenging, then hit him with the maintenance right away, something that he knew could be successful.
Right, good. So yeah, so that could be something, including more maintenance or independent activities. Yeah.
One of the things we said too was like to keep her. This sounds crazy, but to keep her focused on, or being able to complete the activity, she would have like maybe a bracelet. So while she's doing her activity, she can do this, or one of those. You know how they have leg warmers, they have arm warmers now. So, and they're like really soft and stuff. So opposed to pinching herself or hitting herself, do it while the teacher's doing the instruction time, she could do this and get that sensory input during that time, but she's actually still completing her activity.
That's good, and that's a little similar to what you guys were talking a little bit too. Maybe add some of those sensory things within, as long as she's not becoming distracted by that. It's okay if she kind of does something, like you turning the pinching into something that could be more adaptive, right? By just kind of just feeling something on her arm, that relates to one of her reinforcers, a blanket or a sock that she really likes or something, but then also continuing to move forward with the instructional. Yeah,
we were saying too, the same type of thing, maybe one of the things that was listed was the beanbag chair, so having her sit in the beanbag chair and then she could squeeze the beanbag chair instead of pushing herself. And then two, we were saying to try to teach her that replacement behavior, we might have to reduce, even though 3 minutes seems like a short amount of time, like every time she requests it, reinforce her, so give her like a little glittery sticker and a sticker or something, so that every time she's requesting it, she's getting more frequent reinforcement.
Right.
And then it might help maintain her so that she can wait those full 3 minutes before she goes to the next activity.
Right. Good point. If we're trying to if we're trying to really reinforce that functional language, whenever she is requesting for a break, yeah, instead of just saying, like, wait, one more minute, yeah, maybe just giving her something small, like to just keep, to reinforce her for that, the use of language rather than problem behavior, yeah.
What about the use of a visual weight strip? Count down the time, that was one of the...
Yeah. Good, so that she can actually, so that she can really see then that it's, it's going to be less, yeah, that's good. All right, good. So we've kind of, got 5 more minutes before lunch here. So function, it's a little complicated. I know, like on this, like the FAST talked about sensory being primary, because she does do a lot of that, just because it does, it feels good. But then from direct observation, I'm not sure you could support that. It looked like it, I mean, you tell me what you think, but it could have been, was it still sensory, or did it seem like maybe a little more related to attention or escape? Yeah, avoidance, yeah. So that's where sometimes, like the FAST and direct observation data may not match up with some of your indirect, and then you need to just try to solve that and kind of look at them both together. They're all functions. There's definitely, she has sensory as one of the and attention when she wants her break, she wants a preferred thing, but that also avoidance of the challenging tasks, yeah. So what were you going to say?
I think that relates to why we chose that intervention of giving her those delivery stickers as her reinforcer, because that came up as one of the things that was a reinforcer for her. So using the function of if she's trying to get sensory stimulation, it gives her that immediate function, but then it also gives her kind of an escape, because she can look at that sticker for a little bit and do whatever kind of self-stim or whatever she's doing, and then get her back to task, but maybe she won't be self-stimming or self-injurious behavior for as long as she would without the...
Right. So like a real strong reinforcer that's going to cover more than one function, yeah. Good, great.
One thing we do is we're always evaluating what is the task. Have we jumped too far? In other words, all these things are great, but if it's really too much for her, we have to figure that out. In other words, have we jumped from the prerequisite up too far? Is there something in between that? Or when we're looking at the task analysis, to say, can we break it down into smaller parts? Because what it is that we're trying to teach her, and then figure out there's a different way to present it. Maybe she doesn't like the way we're presenting it. In other words, she doesn't get out of the task, but we really have to evaluate how we're presenting the task.
All right, that's good. Okay, good. Replacement behaviors, we've kind of covered this a little bit before, but what are the main things you want her to be doing instead of the self-hitting pinching?
Requesting like a sensory object or some sort of break instead of doing this.
All right, good. Yeah, that's a real strong alternative skill, requesting that through some language, either picture or sign. Anything else? We're just sustained attention, right? And staying on task and completing the task. Try to keep that simple at her level, if it's just even a 1-minute task, but yeah. Okay. Any others? Or those are big ones? We've covered this a little bit too, prevention strategies, things to put in place so that doesn't occur. We talked about giving the reinforcers, right, during the instructional task, right? Giving the little stickers or something when she does use functional language to ask for the break. Like I've told most of the groups here that there were some of those prevention things built in, like break time, instruction time, and then break time. But the fact that those things were still happening during the instructional work periods, it probably wasn't sensitive enough, like compared to the stuff that you're recommending. To try to add sensory things during the instructional time and giving her a reinforcer for specific language. So, Any other prevention strategies?
She had a higher frequency of behavior in the first instructional
Yeah.
period, so maybe starting her day with maybe an independent task that she could feel confident in, or starting with some sensory, feeling a sensory need right away, and then going into an instructional setting.
Yeah, that's good. And I think that's that's exactly the way she is, that it's like, it's a challenge every morning to get started. But then once she starts to know the sequence, you know, that I got to do my work, and then I get my break, and then I do some more work, and then I get my break. Once she gets that down, you do see like a decrease. It's almost like she accepts it, like that's part of going to school. But yeah, so if she could have something else to help to kind of just make it more smoothly get into the day, doing a more break, but then also then something independent, you know, that's easy, and then moving into then something that's a little more instructional can help to, maybe it won't get as much resistance and problem behavior. Yeah. So good, that's a good example of changing the environment to really, and the workday scheduled activities. Yeah.
We also talked about maybe using a transition object. It's something that she likes. She can carry with her a sensory ball or a sock or something.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when she was doing independent work, there weren't many instances, but then when it was a transition to a non-preferred activity, her case of behaviors in it. So she had something she could carry with her that reinforced it. So yes, maybe this isn't something I want to do, but at least until I get there, I'm continuing.
Right. Okay. To help like bridge. Yeah. Yeah. To keep getting through it. Yeah.
Talk about including the OT, and maybe using like a weighted vest or weighted blanket or something. And talked about using picture schedules so she knows what to expect and what's coming next.
Yep. That's good. Yeah. Yeah. And I think not all the stuff was included in here. I think some of those things were, like as far as like pictures that she could use to, not only for her to request, but also for like the teacher to let her know. You know, like just first is the work, and then your break. Yeah, giving her the. Oh yeah, good. Yeah. Anything else in that? Yeah, prevention.
We talked about starting the day with almost like a check-in. You get off the bus and you get to do brushing or rolling or, you know, the weight blanket, something where you just don't even have to start anything until you've had some of that.
Right. To just to give her those. Yeah, that's meet that sensory need. Yeah, in an appropriate activity.
So in reality, what do we do when we have a class of 11? And that's my question. Then we have students that need this type of, you know, functioning, and yet the other ones are higher functioning. Yeah. And that we don't have a one-on-one aid. Yeah. You know, so how do you do it?
That's what, like with this.
Reality?
Yeah, in reality, like this student was, I mean, this obviously, it's when you're in one of these functional classes with a lot of needs, the numbers are low, but she was even lucky. There was only 3 kids in this class. You know, so with the teacher and then the aide, and then there was a therapeutic support for her. Okay, yeah, exactly. So you're right. Yeah, if you've got a couple different, if you've got, with like 11.
I might have 12,
Maybe setting up, you're going to have to do just having more set up like in the organization and structure of the classroom to have those things, to have like the reinforcers at the ready, you know, and like if there's like 2 kids, then, or if there's like 2 staff and like 2 kids, to be able to monitor them more closely about when they need to stop the instruction and then move on to the break. It's going to be more about like just having those things set up, having the reinforcers set up as part of the, and then maybe structuring those specific instructional time, that separate times for those 2 kids, to where there's going to have to be more staff proximity whenever they're doing those challenging activities. You know, there's no easy answer for that when there's that many. Yeah.
We have a class of 9 with 3 grades in the class, and some of them are higher, some of them aren't, and they all have a picture schedule, and they all benefit from it. And so
a classroom system.
They're all going in different directions because there's 3 different grade levels. And some of the kids don't need it, but because the others have it, they just all have it. And setting it up was a pain, and getting them used to it was difficult, because, you know, the teacher must say, go check your schedule 100 times an hour. But now that we're this far into school, it really does help, and everybody knows what they're supposed to do and where they're supposed to go. So it takes a lot in the beginning, front loading, but it really does help.
So setting up an overall classroom-wide system, whereas even though they all may not need it, some are going to need it more than others, but to have it set up and and then provide more one-to-one and prompting for those that are going to need more, more instruction on staying with the activity, and to be able to supply the resource or the reinforcers. Yeah. The next, what if she's, whenever the correct replacement behavior is happening, what does she get? We kind of answered this one too. Breaks, her reinforcers, right? The things she likes in her, like her safe area, right? Okay. Anything else? Anything that we haven't talked about before with that? What does she?
The description of the instructional period reads as if the teacher is not using, or the aide is not using the reinforcers to reward successful performance. Was that actually the case?
Yeah, she wasn't doing it really during those instructional periods. Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, you guys put suggestions in to maybe incorporate more of those things. You have more of those reinforcement strategies within the instructional period. But no, it was more just her getting through, doing prompting to stay focused, and maybe reminders of like, oh, almost break time, like 1 more minute, or that kind of thing, like before she gets the break. But the reinforcers were really kept separate from the instructional periods. And there was a reason for that, was because when you started to blend it with her, she would pull towards the reinforcers, and she wouldn't get any instruction done. Okay, so that would be an additional complicating factor that you'd have to be careful about when you start to add in some of those reinforcers, because she's very easily, just pulled towards that, towards the self-stim, on the blanket and sock and that kind of thing. So that was the reason why this teacher wanted to keep that separate, and just kind of keep it shorter instructional periods, but keep letting her know, break soon, and she'll hold up the picture, and let her know, get her to, and praise her whenever she would request. Like when she requests the break, through sign or, but no, it wasn't, you're right, no, it wasn't part of the instructional periods. Yeah. Anything else? I know we got a break for lunch here. Let's just get through these, and then these last couple things. What about whenever she's doing the problem behavior? This is more like extinction, like when she's actually doing that problem behavior in class. What are you going to do? Try to get that to stop? If she starts doing the hitting, like right during the instructional period?
I don't know if it said how she responded to hand over hand, but you could just physically direct her hand.
Yeah.
The object that she should squeeze and finish her.
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's kind of what was done. Either if there was another reinforcer right there, it would be redirecting her to sign, please, or sign, stop. And then tell her, it's like, all right, 1 more minute, let's keep working, but yeah, trying to just holding the hand over hands, try to send her back down to whatever the functional activity is, and getting her to use functional language to request. Anything else? Yeah, not a lot of great, like magical answers to that one. We're just going to have to stop it. Yeah. The last thing here, I wanted to add this one in. Remember, we had, what was the type of behavior that was collected? Was it just frequency data, or was there rate data there too? There was rate, okay. Would you want to keep that kind of a behavioral measurement system, like ongoing, and collect data that way? Or did any of you have any new ideas of how to maybe collect the data differently? Because if you collected that frequency and rate just for those instructional periods, you could then later you could chart that on a scatter plot, right? To see how many times these things happen, and hopefully you'd see them at a very low level, the problem behaviors. And then maybe you could also then chart the functional language being used to request, and hopefully seeing an increase in some of that. Any other different ideas on changing how you're going to collect the data through those different, thinking back to those behavioral observation things like ABC, scatter plot, FAST, specific observational tools? Kind of continue with some of the same type stuff, or? Oh, my stomach's growling. I hope you guys can't hear. Time for lunch. We're going to do one more case study.